Hello, thank you for joining us for our Advisicon webinar series. Today's webinar is titled Risk Management with Microsoft 365. Here at Advisicon, our amazing team of trainers, developers, and technology consultants want to help you maximize your impact, productivity, and purpose. And we do that through a blend of methodology and technology consulting. Today, your presenter is myself. My name is Sean, and I have a background in math education, and I am dad joke certifiable. Furthermore, I have 10 years of delivering instruction and training. I am a project management professional, and I also hold a CAPM. And my experience is implementing Microsoft 365 as solutions. Today's agenda, we'll talk about project risk management, the idea of the process and why we do project risk management. Furthermore, we'll then dive into the Microsoft 365 tools and begin to see how we can implement those project risk management processes using Microsoft 365. Here at Advisicon, we offer many tools in addition to our webinar series. And one of those tools is this flowchart, which you can get from our website, advisicon.thinkific.com. First, let's talk about what is a risk. Often a risk and an issue, those two terms get interchangeably used. So a risk is an uncertain event or condition that, if it occurs, has a positive or negative effect on one or more project objectives. And one of the key words being there is if. It hasn't happened yet is one of the big differentiators between a risk and an issue. An issue is an uncertain event that has occurred. Furthermore, there are different types of risks. Starting on the left, a known risk is a predictable event. For example, you can predict that your resources on a project will go out sick. That is predictable, right? Humans tend to get sick, especially during the winter time, so we can plan for that known risk. Another type of risk is an unknown risk. That's an event that is revealed by actually doing the project work. For example, systems or materials, you may not know how they will interact until you actually do the project, until you actually combine and integrate those systems or materials, and that may develop a risk. Third type of risk is an unknowable risk, and this is impossible to predict event. For example, climate, weather changes, these things are impossible to predict. So just understanding that there are some risks we just can't predict, but there's some risks that we can have a better idea about. When we start to develop our risk management process, the first thing we want to do is have a plan, and we'll develop a risk management plan, which is a very high-level document that tells the project managers and the stakeholders involved how. It'll include measurements of how we're going to measure our risks, from what's considered a low risk, what's considered a medium, what's considered a high risk. Furthermore, where do we get our data to understand our risks? Third, where does the funding come to potentially mitigate or totally avoid or eliminate our risks? Next, how often should you do risk management? How often should you go through the process? And furthermore, again, this is a very high-level document. This is not an exhaustive list, but you also want to possibly include risk categories. Well, where are the possible sources of risk? Are they internal? Are they external within the market environment in which we operate? Next, in the risk management process, you want to identify your risks. The output of this will be a risk register and a risk report. The risk register is a list that includes the name, description, includes that risk category. And we'll look at some tools to further clarify what a risk register might look like. Now, of course, these are only the knowable risks. What does a risk report look like? The risk report is a summary of that list. It includes summaries such as, how many risks were there? Where's the biggest source of those risks? Are they internal? Are they external? Are they interactive? So just kind of summarizing all our risks that we have identified. Next, in the risk management process, you'll assess your risks. So to review, we've identified how we're going to do our risk management. We've identified the risks. We sat down with our subject matter experts and our project management team. Next, We need to assess. We know there are risks, but not all risks will equally decrease value. That's a function of risks, is that they decrease or actually increase value of your project. A risk can be positive or negative. So we need to measure them against one another, and that's what we'll do assessment. We'll do qualitative or quantitative assessments. And for clarification, qualitative, here's that word quality as the root word there, allows you to prioritize by some measurement. For example, you would want to measure the probability that an event occurs and the expected impact. So you can put those two measurements together, and then you can create a product. You can multiply those two and create some type of qualitative measurement of the risks against each other. That allows you to rank it based on that total risk score. If you do a quantitative measurement, and I say if because not always do projects require quantitative measurement, but it is a quantity, there's that root word there, it's a way to numerically analyze the combined effect of individual risks. And I'll show an example of a tool that can help you do a quantitative as well as qualitative assessment of your risks. All right, we've planned them, we've identified them, we've ranked them against one another. Well, we need to now develop a plan on how to respond to them. So even before the risk turns into an issue, we already know our response to that. First of all, we need a trigger. We need to say, this is the starting event from turning a risk into an issue. It should definitely be an objective measurement, because everyone can say, well, it's definitely going to happen. I think it's going to happen. It's really close. Rather, we need an objective measurement. For example, we could say production has slowed to a certain number. That identifies it. This many resources have gone out sick. Now that triggers a response. Next, we want to talk about what action, specific measurable action that we can implement so that when the risk turns into an issue, we have a plan already. And then, of course, when you have that action, who's responsible to get that action done? So further developing a plan that says when an event happens, we can identify it, we know it, and here's how we're going to respond. Responsible risk management. Lastly, we want to monitor risks as we're working. We're going to be collecting and analyzing data. Why? So that we can identify when that trigger event occurs. Also, as we monitor, we're constantly searching for risks. Well, anytime a change happens, that change occurs a possible risk. And to track that, we do change requests in project management. And the change request will go all the way back to the second step of this risk management process, and that being the risk register. New risk identified, let's put it down, let's assess it, measure it against other risks, response plan, and then do the whole thing over and over. But how often do I do this risk identification and monitoring? Well, I do it according to the risk management plan. As you can predict, the more perceived risk, then the more often you'll want to do your risk identification. What type of projects might incur more risks? Definitely projects that have never been done before. So when it's definitely a new idea, there's definitely a lot more risk. So you probably want to increase the number of times you do the risk management process. All right, now let's go and match these risk management processes with Microsoft 365 tools. Why Microsoft 365? For 3 reasons. One, security. You are able to configure sharing and settings and permissions appropriately so you can defend or, again, share. So the security is very flexible, but very helpful to define roles, permissions. Secondly, integrate. Microsoft 365 apps talk to one another. For example, comments in Word can generate emails. Excel documents can be shared in Teams, and Power BI can pull data from Microsoft Project. So a lot of integration with the tools. So that's another reason why you might want to consider using Microsoft 365. Thirdly, the accessibility with Microsoft 365. Your virtual teams can access their documents from any time zone as long as they have the correct permissions. And Microsoft even offers guidance on how to make slides more friendly to visually challenged users. So accessibility not only to users in different time zones, but accessibility to even visually challenged users. So lots of benefits with Microsoft 365 and the cloud. Okay, now let's start to pair the tools with the process. Process and tools paired together. Starting off with the planning process, remember the output is this big high-level document, this how-to risk management plan. Of course, an easy reach for that tool would be to use Microsoft Word. And the reason is because we are able to include a table, another useful tool within Microsoft Word. Microsoft Word offers a variety of smart art charts that you can customize to display more visually appealing than just a table. They even have different types of tables where, for example, in this one, it can help you identify your source of risk. And it all comes with a nice, easy to use hierarchy that makes the chart fit and match, and even customized to color schemes of your choice. So lots of things to like within Word. And again, the benefit is that it's all in the cloud. So you can collaborate with your project team over many time zones at many times of the day, and the security with the cloud. Next, we will identify the risks that we might incur on this project, and we want to compile it. And the suggested tool for this would be Microsoft Lists. Now, maybe your tool that you were going to reach for was Excel, and that could be very helpful, but there's some advantages with using Microsoft Lists. I won't go too much into the how to use Microsoft Lists. We have many videos in our Advisicon webinar series that lay that out for you, and please do go and check those out. But here in Microsoft Lists, you'll notice it does look a lot like an Excel sheet with columns. All these are columns at the top, and there are various rows. And you can just add new rows using the new button, which will actually bring up a form for you to fill out, as opposed to having to go cell by cell. A little bit more advantage, user-friendly advantage than Excel. Let's talk about what are these columns. So I recommend putting a risk ID when doing a risk register. Sometimes risks can sound similar just by the risk description. So risk ID will make it very easy to say, well, I'm talking about risk 1. I'm talking about risk 32. Second column, yeah, we'll have a risk description. Tell me, what is that risk description? Here are some examples of maybe having breakfast with others. One risk being no more coffee. Oh, that would be a horrible thing to happen, right? When we're trying to have a wonderful breakfast. Another possible risk is, people might stay all day. And this highlights the fact that not all risks are negative. Some risks can be positive. So instead of being a threat, now it's called an opportunity. And what an opportunity to see your family all day. Next column is called impact. Tell me a little bit more if this event should occur. And you can see some here. And notice again, if people stay all day, the benefit is enjoyment. What about a response? Again, with Microsoft Lists, you can create data tags, and instead of just typing like you would in Excel, you can create a tag, which I'll show you the advantage of in just a little bit. But the risk response, what will we do? Will we just accept that risk will happen if it should happen? So just, really no response, just let it play out. Or will we mitigate? Will we take advanced action so that the chance or probability of that risk occurring is really minimized, even to the point where it might be eliminated? That will not be a risk. One way to mitigate no more coffee is just to buy more coffee, buy a lot more coffee than you might need. And this brings us to the next column, the description, very measurable, specific actions that will be taken in case the risk turns into an issue. Next column I recommend is having a risk state. Where is this risk right now? Is it just pending? Is it just, lurking there, low probability occurring? It hasn't yet occurred. Or in this first row, is it actually open? Has this risk occurred? And since this risk did occur, look at the next column. Who's going to be accountable for it? Who's going to be the one to say, I will drive the risk to the issue rather to closing? I will take the proper response, and I will help us mitigate or eliminate that risk, or now an issue actually. Again, why Microsoft Lists over Excel? It just looks like an Excel sheet, right? Some of the data tag, the metadata tags, again, I'll show you the benefit of that, and that is you'll be able to filter and sort for just those items. Plus, I like that. For me, it's visually appealing because I can see the colors, except green. Yeah, I like that. Yellow, I'm gonna get some warning. So you can associate some of the maybe red, yellow, green ideas with your metadata tags. Here again is the benefit of using Microsoft lists. You get different views. Notice this is the same list of risk, which I titled Risk Register, but I've changed the view into a gallery view. Furthermore, I've filtered to only show risk responses that we have decided to accept. Maybe I want to say, are we really just going to accept these risks when they happen? This allows me to focus on the most important items. Still with the risk process of identifying, what's helpful is that your list can now be shared in Microsoft Teams. So notice here, I have this channel called General, and here in the content pane, I've added a tab called Risk Register, and this is the exact same list that I found, that I compiled in the Microsoft List app. But Teams is flexible, integratable, so that a lot of the Microsoft tools can be present in Teams. So now, as my team is working, I can look at the risks, then I can come over to posts, and we can chat about it. I can open related files, and again, all within this channel within a team. So my communication stays really neat, concise. I don't have to do a lot of context switching. We move on next to the process of to assess. Remember, this is where we've identified the risks, and now we're going to match them up against one another and say, how does risk 1 compare to risk 2? And we can do a qualitative assessment with now diving into Excel. As I mentioned before, not all risks will equally decrease value. Some risks will decrease value stronger than others. We need an objective method to rank them against one another. And why? Because this takes the emotion out of the equation, and we just focus on realistic, objective measurements. As much as we don't want to say that's going to happen, if the probability is high and the impact is high, we better address that. So in Excel, we can build a table where the magnitude and probability can be multiplied to create a severity score. For example, here at risk 1, you can see the magnitude, the impact will be a 10, and the probability of occurring is pretty low. It's a 3, and that creates a severity score of 30 because it's multiplied. On this table, we actually even added another column, another factor called advanced warning. Wouldn't that be nice if you saw the issue occurring? You could say, yep, it's trending towards that direction. So advanced warning would be nice to know. Well, where do we get these magnitude and probability scores? Think about it. What tells us how to rank them? That's right, the risk management plan goes all the way back to the beginning where we defined the risk management plan. All right, let's go into the risk analysis and do a little demonstration. Okay, so again, we're in Excel, and we've listed out our risks, assigned a magnitude and a probability of occurring. But let's say we're updating and finding out new information that says, this risk 1, it's actually not that big of a magnitude anymore for some change. And so that magnitude has actually gone down to a 7. And you can see the size of the impact has decreased. Well, let's say we continue to mitigate that and get that down to a 2. Again, very small impact should that occur. Now, what if the probability of it occurring changes? Let's say, there's a very low chance that occurs. Very good. That's on the good side. But what if that now jumps up to a 10? Oh, that even jumped off our scale. Let's see something measurable like a 5. There it is. That's very bad, right? So again, we can say, continue to mitigate, get that magnitude down to a 1. It's a low severity should it occur. And how about the advanced warning? Let's say, all right, better technology has come out that we can now predict when that will happen, or better predict it rather. And so now the advanced warning has gone to a 4. So again, all this is set up in Excel. This right here is a tool that we offer on our advisicon.thinkific.com website. Continue on with assessments. We did qualitative. Now let's look at quantitative assessments. And again, the root word there is quantity. We've prioritized and ranked risks against one another. Now let's actually do some numerical analysis. One possible tool is called a decision tree. The benefit of this is that we can see the process and we can complete the process without any emotion, purely objective. What will happen if we take one decision over another? Let's walk through this decision tree. First, notice that there's a question. There's a decision put in front of us. Do we, and a common one put forth by organizations, do we build the tool or do we buy the tool? So let's go towards this pathway. If we were to build it, what is the initial investment? And now we've built the tool. What is the chance of success? On the high end, we think a 60% chance of success, which will yield a revenue value, for example, or whatever value measured of 10,000. On a low end, on the low chance side, we will actually yield a revenue of 3,000. So if from those chances, we can now determine a net value, and the net values are measured the difference between the possible revenue or whatever measurement you're using of outcome versus the investment. So with a build and a chance of success, positive 5K. What if it should fail? Now we've lost 2K. So that's good to know, right? That possible path has that possible risk. Now, what about the buy decision? What if we were to buy the tool instead of building it ourselves? High end, there's a good chance that it's going to work, right? We've bought it from an expert. We're not the experts in building it, but we've bought it by an expert, which will then yield possibly 30,000 in revenue, for example. And again, the difference between the investment and the possible revenue, a major gain of 20,000. And again, just to be thorough, what happens if it doesn't work as expected? Well, we would at least gain a revenue of 12,000, the difference being 2,000. Now, that net value is very helpful and a good way to lay it out and say, a lot more risky on the build side with that negative. Though on this end, we're not necessarily going to promise to get the big payout. We might just get a small payout. So you can rank them, rank the decisions against one another. But there's another tool that you could use when doing quantitative risk assessment, and that is expected monetary value. For example, you can take your percentages multiplied by your perceived net value and combine those. That's why, for example, on this build path, we did 0.6 times 5K or 5, and then 0.4 times negative 2K. And then we come up with an EMV or expected monetary value of 2.2K. Contrast that with the buy decision tree branch and doing the same math process of multiplication and adding those two sums, and we have expected monetary value of 16.4K. So even more quantitative assessment, combining all the values that we have. Now, that's the process. But again, which tool created this? And you might say, oh, it's just a bunch of shapes, right? But actually, this is another smart art tool used in PowerPoint. What's the benefit of using this is that the hierarchy here keeps it nice and neat. I just type the value here and it populates it in the corresponding box. I don't have to match them up or keep track of them. Furthermore, it already comes loaded with connections between each hierarchy level. And so that keeps it straight for me. I don't have to keep that aligned. To the next part of the process, response. And again, in this response, what I want to focus on is who will be responsible to complete the response. And so also, how can that person be notified, right? Is it just an email? Well, here again, the suggested tool will be back to Microsoft Lists. Why, you might ask? Because of this feature called Automate. There's so much that we have to do as with a human touch, but there's a lot that the cloud tools can do for you. For example, built in within Microsoft Lists is the Automate Create a Rule function, and here are the rules that it can do. Again, no Power Automate tools, just within Lists. You could modify create a notification when a whole column changes, when a specific value in a column changes, when a new item is created, a new row, or when an item is deleted. Let's go ahead and look at the tool. All right, here in the risk register, again, here's the automate tool built in out of the box feature with Microsoft Lists. I'm going to create a rule, but notice that you can manage the rule when they have been created. So let's create a rule. Here's the items previously mentioned. Let's say I want to be aware when an item is deleted, right? This is a secure document. Nothing should be deleted without approvals. So what's the automation feature? When an item is deleted, send an email to, and I can take some suggestions of dynamic emails to send to. For example, the risk owner should be notified. The person who created the item should be notified. The person who modified this or deleted this should be notified, or do I want to be notified? I might not create it, I might not modify it, but I want to be notified when this does happen. So that's an example of one. The one that I think is really useful is when a column value changes. So for example, we're talking about risk responses. I want to know when the risk response value is changed to, not response, rather risk state. When the risk state is changed to open, right? Now it's changing from a risk to an actual issue. So when the risk state is open, there needs to be a notification. And again, we've identified who to send the risk to, and that is the risk owner. And now we can just click create, and it will create the email automation for us. Let's take a look at what that email will actually look like. So when you get the email, it has the subject line of the item. So this is the item name. It was called No More Coffee, was updated in the list. Let's look at the body here. You're going to say who changed it, right? It was changed by someone. Which field was changed, or column, the risk state was changed. What changed? It's now open. And which list item again? No More Coffee. So again, this helps the risk owner to be like, okay, help me out. What was it? Okay, it was this item, this the change, this field, this column happened, and who changed it? Okay, now I understand. But if I still need further clarification, there's a go to item option here, and it will take me there to the actual list item, again, for more clarification. Again, we want the risk response to be quick, to be sure, and this can be done right within Microsoft Lists. Continuing on with the fifth part of our process, monitoring. Changes happen during a project, and when they happen, we want to be documenting and even approving those changes. So we create a change request. Now, change requests often take the form of an actual document, but maybe in this risk management plan, we've identified that our change request process will use Power Automate. So here's a Power Automate template. Right within Power Automate, again, I didn't have to build this. There's a template called Start an Approval when a SharePoint list is modified. And it's very helpful. It walks you through the necessary information, such as what SharePoint site are we using, which list are we actually looking at, and then who are the approvers on this process. So again, very helpful out-of-the-box templates. Furthermore, let's say you have low understanding of how to use Power Automate. If you try to complete the template, it might give you an error message and say, hey, the assigned to field is required. And then you click on that, and it'll actually take you to that field that needs to be updated. So very user-friendly Power Automate, even if you have low understanding. What does the approval process then look like? For example, this one uses an approval process in Teams. So it has lets you know we're doing an approval in the approval app. It even includes a link within the approval to the SharePoint site, so that, again, the approver can be reminded, okay, what is this all about again? And you can read the description. notice it keeps a status check on this. If I just kept this as one approver, but you could have multiple approvers, and you could say, this process is not complete until all have approved. And notice that it's not just approved that there's an option to respond. You can say, no, I don't approve this, and you can reject, and then that'll notify the process starter. There are other options such as cancel, follow up, reassign. So again, all of these are out-of-the-box features within Power Automate. And again, we're monitoring the changes that happen with projects, because there's always going to be changes, right? Our plans are suited until we actually begin the work, and then they're gonna have to change just based on new information. All right, let's summarize what we have talked about today in the webinar. In summary, always risk. There's always risk happening with any decisions taken. Even the decision to not make any changes is a risk. Secondly, plan for your risks. There's knowable risks, and you can plan for them. You can have a response for them, and you can have a response owner who's responsible to execute the response plan. Thirdly, blend your process and your tools. Microsoft 365 offers a variety of tools that can easily match to the process of risk management, and this will hopefully increase your success rate. As mentioned previously with Advisicon, do what requires human intervention, but then automate the rest. You might have to write descriptions, of course. You might have to enter values. You might have to assign tasks. But let the Microsoft 365 tools structure your charts. Let it deliver your tasks and even monitor the process. Blending process with technology allows for greater work satisfaction. When it is time for your next project, please reach out to us for a consultation to address your project pain points. We work with organizations in every aspect of the project management process, from mapping out business processes to building and customizing new tools to training your team on the new process and tools. Give us a call or reach out to us through our website. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you in the next webinar. Take care.